So I'm reading these books too because the when you read, it also improves your fluency in speaking. So here's some my time to read these books. But on chapter two, already on chapter two, on chapter one, I don't even know what happened. Chapter two, the new Margarita. On the first landing, Sorelli ran against the Comte de Chagny, who was coming upstairs. The Count, who was generally so calm, seemed greatly excited. "I was just going to you," he said, taking off his hat. "Oh, Sorelli, what an evening! And Christine Day, what a triumph!" "Impossible," said McGurry. "6 months ago, she used to sing like a crock. But do let us get by, my dear Count," continued the brat, with a saucy courtesy. We are going to inquire after a poor man who was found hanging by the neck." Just then the acting manager came forcing past and stopped when he heard this remark. "What?" he exclaimed roughly. "Have you got hurt already? Well, please forget about it for tonight, and above all, don't let the being politely here. It will upset them too much on their last day." They all went on to the foyer of the ballet, which was already full of people. The Comte de Chagny was right. No gala performance ever equaled this one. All the great composers of the day had conducted their own works in turns. Farr and Krauss had sung, and on that evening Christine Day had revealed her true self for the first time to the astonished and enthusiastic audience. Bernard had conducted the funeral march of a Marionette Reye, his beautiful overture to Segal, Saint-Saëns, the Dance Macabre, and a Reverie Orientale, Messiaen, an unpublished Hungarian march. Gorat, his Carnival, the Leaps, the Valse Land from Livia, and the Pizzicati from Coppelia. And Klaus had sung the Bolero in the Vespri di Siciliani, and Mel Dennis Bloch the drinking song in Lucrezia Borgia. But the real triumph was reserved for Christine Day, who had begun by singing a few passages from Romeo and Juliet. It was the first time that the young artist sang in this work of canon, which had not been transferred to the opera and which was revived at the Opera Comique after it had been produced at the Old Theatre Lyrique by Mme. Carvalho. Those who heard her say that her voice in this passage was seraphic, but this was nothing to the superhuman notes that she gave forth in the prison scene, and found a thrill in false which she sang in the place of La Carlotta, who was ill. No one had ever heard or seen anything like it. They reveal a new Margarita tonight, a Margarita of splendor, a radiant, hitherto unsuspected. The whole house went mad, rising to its feet, shouting, cheering, clapping, while Christine sobbed and fainted in the arms of her fellow singer, and had to be carried to her dressing room. few subscribers, however, protested. Why had so great a treasure been kept from them all the time? To them, Christine Day had played a good Sibyl to Carlotta rather to splendidly better Margarita, and it had needed Carlotta's incomprehensible and inexcusable absence from his gallant night for the little day at a moment's warning to show all that she could do in a part of the program reserved for the Spanish diva. Well, what the subscribers wanted to know was why had there been a polling applied today when Carlotta was taken ill? Did they know of her hidden genius? And if they knew of it, why had they kept it hidden? And why had she kept it hidden? Oddly enough, she was not known to have a proper professor of singing at that moment. She had often said she meant to practice alone for the future. The whole thing was a mystery. The child standing up in his box, listened to all this frenzy and took part in it by loudly applauding. To all this frenzy and took part in it by loudly applauding. Philip George Murray completed. Jackie was just 41 years of age. He was a great aristocrat and a good-looking man, above middle height and with attractive features. In spite of his hard forehead and his rather cool eyes, he was exquisitely polite to the woman and a little haughty to the man, who did not always forgive him for his success in society. He had an excellent heart and an irre- irreproachable conscience. On the death of old Count Philibert, he became the head of one of the oldest and most distinguished families in France, whose arms date back to the 14th century. The child owned a great deal of property, and when the old Count, who was a widower, died, it was no easy task for Philip to accept the management of so large an estate. His two sisters and his brother Raoul would not hear of a division and waived their claim to the shares, leaving themselves entirely in Philip's hands. Still, the right of primogeniture had never ceased exist, to exist. When the two sisters married on the same day, they received a portion from their brother, not as a thing rightfully belonging to them, but as a dowry for which they thanked him. The Comtesse de Tiny ni de Morales de la Martiniere died and gave birth to Raoul, who was born 20 years after his elder brother. At the time of the Count, old Count dead, Raoul was 12 years old. 12 years of age. Philip busied himself actively with the youngster's education. He was admirably assisted in this work first by his sister and afterward by an old aunt, the widow of a naval officer who lived at Brest and gave young Raoul a taste for the sea. The lad entered the border traineeship, finished his course with honors, and quietly made his trip round the world. Thanks to powerful influence, he had just been appointed a member of the official expedition on board of the Queen, which was to be sent to the Arctic Circle in search of the survivors of the D-Artois expedition, of whom nothing had been heard for 3 years. Meanwhile, he was enjoying a long furlough which would not be over for 6 months, and already the dowagers of the Faubourg Saint-Germain were pitying the handsome and apparently delicate stripping stripping for the hard work in store for him. This is we gotta take a rest, a little bit rest.